Hello and welcome to the Franchise Tag Betting Show, Week 9. Adam, we are halfway through the season now. The last few weeks have been successful for us. There's some money in the pot now. It's looking good. Still waiting on a big winner from you, though, Adam. You need to pull your finger out this episode.
I'm not talking to you. It's just an outrage. It is an absolute outrage. Whatever I do, I 2 out of 3, 4 out of 5. Can never get that last one.
Waiting on that last tick. You had a big one last week. It's worth mentioning. You were a Cole Kmet touchdown away from £6,000.
I was, and it never came because Shane Waldron is the devil, and he just never threw the ball. Never went to Cole Kmet. In fairness, because at the time I was very angry with pretty much everyone on the Bears side, but actually, in fairness to Caleb Williams, the play was never there, was it? For him, it was never given to Cole Kmet, and but just to really, of course, why not just screw me up by not having a touchdown, but to really rub salt into the wounds, give it to Cole Kmet for the 2-point conversion. That is what we want to see.
You should get half of the odds of that bet.
Half a tick.
If they get a 2-point conversion. Adam, as always, we usually start with talking about the game that's already been on last night. That was the Houston Texans at the New York Jets. The score ended 21-13 in the New York Jets' favor. Back to winning ways. Aaron Rodgers started off pretty slowly, but then got it going in the second half once he started throwing the ball to Garrett Wilson, because he didn't get many targets early doors, and then he made some spectacular catches last night. Adam, is this the start of something decent from the New York Jets, or is it just lucky that they managed to play on a short week at home against a Houston team that has lost all its wide receivers?
Well, I don't really need to say anything there, then, do I? Because you've just given me every reason as to what the reason was. So yeah, it was because, I mean, the Texans' offense was vastly hampered by the loss of Diggs and obviously Nico Collins as well. And I think with the Jets, I don't really feel like there was much difference to most of their games. I feel like it was pretty much the same as what it's been for a lot of them. The defense played better, so I mean that kind of limited the Texans a bit, but then there wasn't much to throw to other than Tank Dell. And yeah, I think it's kind of a bit of a covering over the cracks type result for the Jets. And I think that the Texans will be fine once Nico's back. But I think once he's back and out there.
One more week and he's back. Is it week 10 he's back?
Yeah, I think that's what the plan is so far. He's going to be back in week 10. And yeah, I think once he's back, they'll just sort of probably do a bit more like what they were last year. Because they'll be in the same situation, won't they? It's just the defense is a bit better. So, yeah, I don't have any problems with the Texans at all. I just think it was injuries, and with the Jets, I just think it's a blip to the other way round kind of thing. It's almost like a positive blip for them, and yeah, I think it's probably. I still think that they've got some problems ahead.
Yeah, well, the Jets be pushing for a wild card at best, won't they? I think that's all they can hope for at the most. And I think they'll struggle to get that. But looking at what some of the others, like the way the Steelers are playing and things like that at the moment, so yeah, it's could be a bit of a rough one for them. Should we move on to our FTAG5?
Go for it. Let's see what you've come up with this week.
I really, really struggled this week. I said to you yesterday when I was sending over the games that I picked, I found it really, really hard. There was some big spreads, and then there was some 50-50 ones, and I just was unsure about a lot of games this week. Some of the odds, I think the bettors seem to be unsure because the odds have moved quite a bit again. Only slightly on some, but I know from the start of the week there's been some big moves as well. So yeah, I'll start you off. My first one I've gone with, and this seems to be a bit of a common theme, and they've come in quite a lot for me this season so far, and that's the LA Chargers at the Cleveland Browns. It's 1.5 point favorites for this one. They seem to be getting it going. The defense looks good. They don't concede many points. The offense, Lad McConkey's back to fitness, playing well. Apparently, Quentin Johnson's back this week as well from injury. Justin Herbert looks good under Harbaugh's calling. And the Browns, yes, they played well last week. Yes, they got a victory against the Ravens, but is that just a case of we've changed it up and it worked for 1 week and then it'll be back? We saw that with the Panthers, didn't they, when they made that drastic change for Dalton and then they won and then they were back to their old selves. Chargers don't give up many points, and Browns, I can't see them scoring many points. They haven't got many weapons on offense. They have got Nick back. So the 1.5, I feel like Chargers can win this by a field goal or more.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you on this one. I think that the one thing that you got to remember with that Ravens game for the Browns is that as great as the Ravens are at stopping the run, they're very poor when it comes to stopping passing yards. And Jameis Winston just wants to throw the ball all over the place all the time. So it kind of played into his strengths to a certain degree. The Chargers are a much better passing defense. They're much stronger in that area. And as you say, that you do tend to get an initial bump when a change is made, and especially a position like quarterback, you would expect that to happen when you've had such poor play from Deshaun Watson and the crowd themselves like screaming for Jameis Winston as well. So I think if you put all that into it, there was a very much a feel-good factor. I'd expect that feel-good factor to still be there on Sunday because they're at home. But the fact is that they are going up against a Chargers defense that is a little bit different to the Ravens defense. And I think that they probably will be a little bit better at being able to maybe get a few interceptions. I think that I do like some of the Browns players to get touchdowns in this game, certainly more than the Chargers ones, but that's more because of the pricing.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think the -1.5. I would just argue that the Chargers are probably a better all-round team, and so because of that, I think I would be quite happy to go on that side, given the fact that it's under a field goal.
Yeah, I think if they do get off to a good start and they get in front early, Harbaugh will just game management, clock management, and win this game quite comfortably. And yeah, the 3 really helps me with this one. So yeah, quite confident in that one. That's why it's the first one I locked in. The next one I locked in was the game just below, just there. I've taken the Cincinnati Bengals at home against the Las Vegas Raiders. -7 on this. I know it's the full touchdown, but I'm just going against everybody who plays the Raiders at the moment. And with how explosive the Bengals offense is, I can see them putting up scores. Despite I'm going to take last week out of the equation. Every game other than that, they've managed to put points up. Putting points up has not been their issue. Conceding points has been their issue. Their defense is letting them down. I think Joe Burrow is having a great season. Jamar Chase is playing well as well. I know they're without T. Higgins for this one, aren't they? But happy that they will be able to score points. And the Raiders, we've said it now, unless it goes to Bowers, there's not a lot in there for points for them. So I reckon this could be a win by 10 plus for the Bengals if they turn up on offense.
Yeah, this is the one that I don't like out of all of them. It's because it's 7. It's a horrible line. It is the because it isn't the touchdown, is it? It's the touchdown plus. In order to win this, and that's where the problem comes in. And this is where I feel like, and it kind of similar to last week when they were going up against the Chiefs, and it was -10, and the worry was that the Chiefs are a team that don't really push on, that the Raiders are a team that defensively I don't think they're done, and I still don't think they're done. I thought they did reasonably okay against the Chiefs last week defensively. It's just that, as you say, they're not going to be a team that's going to put up loads of points. This Bengals defense is not the Chiefs defense by any stretch of the imagination. They have struggled a lot more, and I think that with the likes of Gardner Minshew as your quarterback, he is going to throw the ball more. Jacoby Myers does come into it a bit more. Trey Tucker comes into it a little bit more. These are the sort of like players that probably wouldn't be getting as much of the ball with Aiden O'Connell as your quarterback. So I do think that they do have a little bit more about them. As you say, Brock Bowers is the main guy. So I think that, that's where the ball's going to go most of the time. But this Bengals defense has struggled all season, and they're 24th against giving up rushing yards. And Alexander Mattison has been all right, hasn't he?
Yeah,
he hasn't been an awful running back. 21st against giving up passing yards, and you've got them guys on the Raiders side that can do something here. I agree with you that the Bengals offense is in theory stronger, but now that it looks like, because T. Higgins, as you said, he's been downgraded to doubtful, hasn't he, today? So it looks like he's definitely going to be gone for this game.
They were without him at the start of the year. It took him a while for him to start, and they were putting points up comfortably.
They were, but it was noticeable once he came in how much more improved they were with the two guys there. And it just feels a little bit like this is all about Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and how much they can get that combination going. I think that's going to be difficult when you're going up against the Raiders defense, who are currently 7th when it comes to giving up passing yards. They're pretty strong in that area. The running backs of the Bengals they're all right, but they're not fantastic. And it just feels like 7 points is a lot when basically, you need to be winning by 10 in order to win this, really. And that it just feels like a lot.
Yeah, it does. The 7 scares me, but I just feel, like I said, the Bengals offense is going to be able to score.
So they should. They should.
The next one I've gone for has got a lot of people split. It is the Rams at the Seahawks. Now, originally, this line opened as the Seahawks as the favourites. It's then moved all the way out to -2.5, I believe. And then yesterday it was at 1.5. It's now at 1 again, which would indicate that, the bettors thought it was Seahawks were the favourite. And then everyone's on the Rams train. So all of the public, all of the regular bettors all just hammered the Rams, thinking, yep, that's a win. And then it's kind of gone a bit back and forth between professional bettors and regular bettors, I think, this game, and it's settled at -1. The Rams look like they're back in it. The Seahawks have notoriously struggled against the Rams. They've been a bit up and down this season, the Seahawks. One week we get a good performance, one week we get a bad performance. And I think Rams have got a point to prove now. They're in with a shot of the playoffs. It's in touching distance again for their division. So I think this might be a win for the Rams. So I'm going to take the -1.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you on this one. I think that is probably where you're looking here is as the logical thing to do. I've said this before, and I'm just quickly looking it up again. The Seahawks have beaten the Broncos, the Patriots, a tourless Dolphins, and
they lost to the Giants.
Yeah, they lost to the Giants, and they beat the Falcons in what was a straight like that was felt like an outlier, that one. They've lost to the Giants, but They have lost to the Lions. They have lost to the 49ers. They've lost to the Bills. I feel like the Seahawks are this team that can go out and beat up on teams that aren't very good. And then they struggle against teams that are like, the Lions, the Bills. The 49ers are still a good team despite their record. It's like they struggle against these teams. And I would argue that the Rams are a pretty good team, but the reason that they've struggled is that they've struggled to keep players fit. So I do like the minus. Do you say it's -1 now?
-1 now, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm guessing because when you showed it to me, it's -1.5. They came out last night, didn't they, and said that Puka's got a knee injury. So I'm guessing that's what
tweaked the same knee injury that's kept him out. The season so far. So I think that's probably why it's indicated it's moved again slightly as well. But
so I think that's why.
Previously did a good job, and Cup's still going to be there now. So
yeah, absolutely. I think they've still got plenty of options. As you said, a lot of them guys did okay for them when both Cup and Puka was out. So the fact that Cup's there as well, I don't see it as a particularly big problem for them. I just think the Seahawks are one of these teams that can beat up on the sort of poorer teams and then struggle against the better ones. And I think the Rams are a pretty good organisation at the moment and are looking pretty good. So I'm happy to take the -1. It's within the field goal. I think it's one of the better ones this week, I would say.
Yeah. The next one I've taken, this is where I think it's going to get a bit controversial. I think you might call me mad for this one. I don't know. I've taken the Detroit Lions at -3. It's one of the rare games that Jared Goff is going to be playing outside. He's at the Packers. So apparently it came out yesterday that he's twisted his ankle. The Packers, when I originally put the bet on, I thought Jordan Love wasn't going to be playing, even though Malik Willis has played well at quarterback for them. I thought the Lions have been that explosive on offense that maybe the -3 here is a safe bet with the Lions. But a lot of people are saying maybe I'm crazy with this one because it's Jared Goff outside. So just write him off already.
I wouldn't write him off. I think he's capable outside. He is. He's not dreadful. It's just that he's clearly much better indoors. The reason that I wouldn't be taking this bet on isn't because I would be going +3 on the Packers. I just wouldn't be going anywhere near it. I think that there are too many variables here where it becomes difficult to really know what you're dealing with. As you say, Goff is outside. That it is a variable compared to what he normally does, certainly this season. So you're not 100% sure how he's going to play, other than the fact that he historically has always been poorer outside than inside. So that's pretty much all you know about that. You've then got the variable of whether or not Jordan Love is going to play. As you say, we don't know. So that's a really difficult one to judge. I think that if Jordan Love is playing and is fit, you've got a much better chance of the Packers being able to keep up. But I don't know if he's going to play. And if he is going to play, I don't know how fit he's going to be either. So that's a really difficult one. The other one is that if he's not playing, the way it's gone with Malik Willis is it has been very much run heavy, and the Lions are a very good defense against the run. So that would be a concern. You can pass on the Lions though. So that is something that, if Love's out there, then great, because he can do that. There's a lot of ifs, buts and maybes in this game. And so that's why I'd probably be veering away from it. I also don't particularly like the line being -3. I think that's a bit awkward as well, because it means that you need a touchdown. Logic would suggest, if you look at the way that the Lions have played in these games so far this season, and just the strength of the offense, the strength of the run game especially, but also there are some guys in this team that I do like the look of that I think are going to have good games. I mean, you got to think Amon-Ra St. Brown will have a good game. Sam Laporta will have a good game. Obviously, Jameson Williams isn't around, and I think that opens it up for them too, especially. So, I think I think the Lions will win. I do, and I think that they've got a good chance of covering this 3 points. But it's sort of it's but and yeah, not where I'd be going.
The last one that I've locked in, I think it's moved slightly from again. Yeah, it has. So I took it at -2.5. It's now -3. I have taken the Falcons at home against the Cowboys. That -3 now scares me a little bit because I thought maybe this game might come down to a field goal, and I do like the way the Falcons are playing at the moment. I think they've really got an identity. They've really got Pitts back into it. London obviously has been playing well, and a nice measure of Bijan and Algier too against a Cowboys team that doesn't seem to be getting anything going on the ground. Dak looks to be struggling because of that. Outside of CD Lamb, there isn't a lot there, and that defense just doesn't look the same with the big 3 missing pieces in Bland and Parsons and Lawrence, and Diggs just doesn't seem to be his head right in the game at the moment as well. So I feel like there's big opportunity for the Falcons to win this by a field goal or more. Based on what I've seen from the Cowboys. Like I said, Falcons are at home. So I like the look of this one. Like I said, it was -2. It's now -3. So people are obviously on that same side of the fence as well. How do you feel about this one?
Yeah, I like it. I like it at -2.5. I like it at -3. I think that the Falcons are overall just a better offense, and I think you're going to see that probably come out. The over-under's 52, so they're expecting a bit of a shootout here, and I can understand why, because if you look at both defenses, the Cowboys defense, especially against the run, has been very poor this season, not particularly great against the pass, and then the Falcons are kind of average, really. So I can understand why the shootout is predicted here. I think the Falcons have got tons of offensive weapons now that they can use. As you said, both running backs going up against this rushing defense that is currently 31st when it gives up passing yards. So I think, Bijan and Algier could do really well here. So there might be a lot of running here, which could potentially limit the amount of passing work for the receivers of the Falcons. But I still think that they're going to be used quite a bit here. The Cowboys, it's Dak and CD, and that's it. And that's the problem. Even Jake Ferguson seems to have disappeared a little bit this season. Yeah. So it's
showed up for a little bit and then disappeared again. And I think because they can't get anything from the run game whatsoever, it just leaves you predictable of what you're going to do. And Dak is making mistakes because he's forcing passes that aren't there.
Yeah. I think that Rico Dowdle looked all right at times, and he did okay. He was ill last week, so he missed last week's game, and then there was nothing there because of that. And I think that Dowdle has the potential to do something in this game a little bit, but there's not enough weapons on that team. That is the problem. It's too sort of like Dak can only throw it to CD because the other guys just are not it. And the problem is that every defense knows that that's what they're going to do. So if you bottle up the run, then that is literally all that's left. And even last week, you saw how well that Lamb did. I mean, he was really, really good, well. And had 2 and that's how good he is. But the problem is that despite how good he is, if your defense is going to be like this, then that's not going to make any difference. And so it's really difficult. I agree for this game. I think that the Falcons are just just a better all-round unit, and I actually think their defense is starting to get a little bit better as well. They're starting to show a few signs of improvement. So, yeah, I think that the -3 is, although it's not a great line because of what it is, I think it's probably one of the ones to go for this week.
2 in there that you didn't like. Didn't like the Bengals one. Thought the 7 was one to steer away from, and you didn't like the Packers Lions game at all. And you were keeping well away from that. So, Adam, which games did I miss, and which ones should we be looking at if you to replace those 2 games?
So, the first one, and the one that I'm most confident in, is, and it's horrible to go back to this. It really is horrible to go back to it. But the Bears +1 away at the Cardinals. Now, the reason behind this is I actually think the Commanders' defense, who they came up against last week, are a lot better than what we thought. We just thought they were, like, a couple of weeks ago, we were like, oh, they're better than what we thought. But I think they're actually very good compared to what we thought they were going to be. And they really did seem to stop Chicago from being able to do anything. The Cardinals are 26th against the run, 26th against the pass. I think, as exciting as the Cardinals are, the games are quite good to watch because there is a lot of attacking play in it. It's also because the defense isn't very good. And I think that the Bears defense it's a decent defense. It's like it did pretty well last week against the Commanders. I mean, I know obviously right at the very end it kind of all went a bit wrong, but it was a bit of a freak play. And if you take that away, they limited them to basically 4 field goals throughout the whole game. I mean, so it's a decent defense. The offense is all right. It's not a bad offense. It's just that for whatever reason, it just didn't happen last week. And so I think they're the better team all round. So +1 for the Bears. I like that. It's within the field goal as well, which I was quite surprised about, that it was that small. But yeah, so I like the +1 on that one. And then if you want another,
take the money line on that with it being evens.
Yeah, I mean, you could if you wanted to. I was just, because we've done the spread on all of them, I just did that. But yeah, I mean, if you want to go for the money line, then it would be fair enough to go for that. And the other one that I'm kind of confident, not as confident in, but I like the fact that it's within a touchdown just, is the Bills at home to the Dolphins. Now, the reason that I like this is because the Bills are actually looking like a pretty good offense now, all of a sudden, in the last few weeks, certainly since Cooper's come in. And it's funny because last week Cooper didn't really do a lot, but it doesn't matter. It's just the fact that he's out. It's the fact he's there is enough to draw some of the defenders away, and it opens up the likes of Keon Coleman and Khalil Shakir and players like that. And Dalton Kincaid had a good game as well. So I think these guys, the Bills at the moment, they're looking pretty good. And historically, Tua has struggled against the Bills. And I think that it's going to be a tough one for him to be able to win this one, because although they did look a lot better with him now, it's still a bit of a struggle. And really, when you look at the defenses, you look at all the stats on it, they're pretty similar. So it kind of feels a little bit like the offense is probably where it's going to go. Hopefully we get an exciting game out of it. And, you would kind of hope that the Dolphins, now that Tua is back, would have the potential to keep up. But I just don't think they will. I think they'll just sort of like falter a little bit, and I can see a touchdown winning it. But that's the one that I'm not quite as confident on.
Yeah, that's. I think the reasons you said there at the end of the reasons I steered away from this. Tua is now 1 game back from his concussion, and I just feel if it does click this week, and then we see that offense with Achane, Waddle, and Hill playing like it did before, this game's going to be a lot closer than what it might suggest. We're getting to that point in the year now, Adam, where the weather's going to be playing a factor. We're in November. it's at the Bills. I think, when do you start looking at what week do you kind of go, do you know what? Now weather is a factor when I'm picking my bets.
When it starts snowing.
Well, it's got to
I
be
mean,
close.
really, weather is snow isn't really a problem, and rain isn't really a problem
Wind.
unless it's Miami in cold conditions, as we know. But it's the wind that's the real issue, and that's when it really becomes a problem, because obviously it's about being able to pass the ball through the air. That's the problem. So that's the real thing that you need to keep an eye on. But yeah, I mean, more often than not, I find like cold weather and snow and rain doesn't really impact it too much, unless it's the Dolphins.
Yeah.
Dolphins
Yes.
don't like cold weather. So
Well, I don't think there was any other games in there that I was close to putting in. I think, like I said, there's. Have you noticed this week as well? Again, it's either really close spreads or really big spreads. There's not. It's getting tough to pick them out now. I think the bookies are starting to figure out where to put it.
yeah, I mean, I think the thing is what you're starting to see is you're starting to see teams who are competing and teams who are not. And so I think that's probably why. So say, like, the Eagles against the Jags, it's -7.5 to the Eagles. Well, that's a horrible line because you're just going over the touchdown. But I think the argument would probably be, but the Eagles look like they're starting to click a little bit more. The Jags have basically got nothing to play for now, really. I mean, they're 2-6. They've obviously got their contracts and careers and stuff like that. But in reality, when it comes to this season, you've got a team that is 2-6, and it's not going anywhere. So they're not going to suddenly turn this around and win a load of games in a row, and everybody knows that. So I think that's why you're getting them. I'd say one that I think is a horrible one: the Saints at -7. I mean, the Saints are not great. I know they're playing the Panthers, but the Saints at -7 is a horrible line to take. That
I think that game split our group. I think there were half have taken the Saints, half have taken the Panthers in this one. So
yeah, well, I think the Saints will probably win, because I do think they've got the sort of playmakers to do it. But at -7, it's really, really difficult.
Talks of Derek Carr being back this week, isn't there? I'm not sure whether that's been confirmed or not.
Yeah, it's not. I don't think it's 100%, but there is talk. I mean, obviously, if Derek Carr's out there, then fair enough. I can understand a little bit more why it's at that, but it's a tough one. The Patriots Titans -3 for the Titans. I mean, it's a team that is. Are they 1-6? I think they are, and the Patriots are 2-6. I mean, how can you come up with any line for this? It's a horrible game to think that there's. I mean, is that just because they're at home? I mean, why have they got the -3? So yeah, there's a few games out there where it is difficult to come up with them and work it out, and it is tough. But I think that you're starting to see that there are a few teams out there that haven't got as much to play for.
One quick one before we move on to some touchdown scorers. The Colts at Vikings. Vikings lost their left tackle. I think that's going to hinder them quite a lot. Colts have decided to go with Flacco, which opens up all of the wide receivers. It means Jonathan Taylor might have a better game. It's -5.5. Can you see the Colts having a bit of that up factor that we talked about? Change at quarterback. Minnesota Vikings on a bit of a down slope at the moment, lost their left tackle. We've seen what that's done to the Giants. They're a completely different team. Do you think there's any chance that the line could be wrong on it, or are you? No, Vikings have got this one easy.
So they have brought in Cam Robinson, haven't they, from the Jags, to cover the loss of Darashaw. So I can see the argument for it that you could, but it's difficult to just slot in and it will be okay. I mean, it's not as easy as that. So yeah, there is a little bit of a concern there. And then I just think that, as you say, the Colts are a much more balanced and better offense with Joe Flacco out there. So I think there is a likelihood that they're going to play a lot better. So to me, I think the plus 5.5 is almost appealing on that side, where you sort of think they look a much better offense with him. Pittman and Downs suddenly become much more potent threats than what they are with Anthony Richardson. And I think that they're in a way they're a team that's kind of. I mean, I don't know. It's all very much all about what the relationship is in the locker room and things like that. But not only could it give you a boost at the thought of actually we've got a quarterback now who can pass us the ball, but on top of that, your nearest rivals, the Texans, went and lost last night. So you've got a real chance this weekend to make a really big difference. And that is probably why Anthony Richardson has been benched and why the Colts have gone down this route as an organisation, because they actually think they've got a chance of getting into the playoffs here. And although I would argue Flacco is probably a quarterback who will get you a playoff win, possibly, I don't think you'll go any further than that. So it does feel a little bit like, what's the point? But at the same time, if you're competing for now, if you've got a head coach that wants to win now and a GM that wants to win now, this is probably the most logical thing. So yeah, the plus 5.5 is kind of appealing.
Yeah, I think if you get to the playoffs, even if you don't win the Super Bowl or get to the divisional game, Shane Steichen's job is secure if he reaches that point, isn't he? Whereas if he keeps rolling with Richardson, his job could be at jeopardy. So that I think that's a wise move from him, because I think he's a great coach. Adam, what have we got in terms of touchdown scorers?
Yeah, so we got a few that were over 2-1 for some individual ones if you want it. I'll start off with the biggest one, which is on the Broncos side against the Ravens. Troy Franklin is 11-2. Now, the reason behind this one, I think, as a bet, is that the Ravens are currently 32 when it comes to giving up passing yards, and Bo Nix has got an arm on him that is perfectly fine and will be able to go long if they need to. And Franklin is the one who's got the speed. They've got that connection from Oregon, and I was just really shocked at the price, because I understand it's the Ravens, but I mean, look at what they're doing against passing. That they are struggling here, and so at that price, I was very surprised. I wouldn't expect it that Franklin will be out there all the time, but I think that he's got the ability to be out there and have a few plays over the top and could potentially get in. So at that price, I thought that was a very good one. For the Cleveland Browns against the LA Chargers, I know we spoke about how good the Chargers defense is, but I do think that Jameis Winston is just going to throw the ball as much as he can, because that's what he does. So Cedric Tillman at 2-1, I think is a good price for him. He scored last week. It's a much harder assignment against the Chargers defense compared to the Ravens in the passing game, but I think that Tillman is one that is going to see a lot of game time now, and I think that he might be one that it feels like they're keen to develop him.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think at 2-1, I think he's a good price. So I like that. I mentioned this guy before for the Las Vegas Raiders going up against the Bengals, Jacoby Myers, who is currently 11-5. I like Myers. I think he's the best wide receiver there now. I do agree with you that it is predominantly Brock Bowers that is where the ball's going to go, but I think that Myers is still a very good wide receiver, and the Bengals are 21st when it comes to giving up passing yards. So I think that's one to look out for. My next one, always a bit depressing when you go for this, but he's a big price, and I think he's got a chance of getting in. He got in a couple of weeks ago, actually, as well, and it's against your Giants, I'm afraid.
Oh.
We got to go for Zach Ertz again. He loves the touchdown against the Giants, to Zach Ertz, and at 3-1, I think that he's got a chance. He feels like the safety net for Jaden Daniels. He doesn't need it a lot of the time, but I still think he uses him quite a lot. I mean, he had 7 targets last week, I think it was. So at 3-1, I think he's a decent price. He's only had the 1 touchdown this season, so it's not a massive touchdown score. He nearly got in last week, and so yeah, I like him at that price. And then my final one for in the bets over 2-1 is Tucker Kraft for the Green Bay Packers against the Lions. He's had 5 touchdowns this season. He's actually the tight end 2 in fantasy. I was a little surprised when I saw that, how well he's done. And he's going up against the Lions defense, 27th when giving up passing yards. So yeah, I like the look of Tucker Kraft. I especially like the look of Tucker Kraft if Malik Willis is out there, because I think he will rely heavily on him. But even with Jordan Love out there, you've seen that he's done pretty well. So yeah, I like him at that price. And there is a couple of others, but they're in the trebles. So
okay. Right, as always, we'll start with my treble. I've taken a gamble this week on my early treble. There's a player in there that is a massive gamble for me. I just think if it's ever going to be the game, this is the game. But I have
gone
Troy
with Franklin.
No, I've gone with Mark Andrews because I've had him the last 3 weeks and he hasn't let me down yet. So he seems to be getting the touchdowns at the moment. He's 11-4, still good, great odds on him considering what he's been churning out so far over the last few weeks. I've taken Ramondre Stevenson, had 20 carries last week, got in the end zone again. I think against that Titans team, I think he's a great bet to have for a team that is looking around for people to score. He's the one for me at 7-4. And then my gamble this week is Taysom Hill at 15-8, going up against the Panthers. They've got to get him involved. They got him involved a little bit. I think he had throws, rushes, and catches. So that was his first game back. This is his second game back to full fitness. So I see him being used quite a lot. And he was one of those weapons that you spoke about. And he's at 15-8. So all in all, 28.64 to 1, Adam.
I don't think I have ever backed Taysom Hill ever to do anything. You just don't know what you're getting, do you? He's an absolute nightmare, that guy.
Well, I think with the issues they've got and the quarterback situation, I think he's a good option.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think he is, and obviously, like when it comes to like QB running plays and things like that, he is a good option. But it's so difficult to know what they're going to do with him. But yeah, the other two I like. I think the other two are good. But yeah, Taysom Hill, like I said, I don't think I've ever backed him at all. My first one, same as you, gone for Mark Andrews, 11-4. It's the price more than anything else.
You can't steer away from it.
So I think the reason that it's managed to hold up is because obviously Deontay Johnson is there now, and you do sort of think, although they will probably play with a tight end, you do think that it's kind of the same sort of passes, isn't it? It's like Deontay Johnson is quite a quite a slot guy. And I do feel that might be what the argument is. I mean, I would have thought that he's probably shorter than what Mark Andrews is. And so I do wonder if that's a bit of the reasoning behind it. But the thing that I think you have to hang your hat on with Mark Andrews is that the snap count is going up. That's the important thing. And so that's something that I think is important to know. So yeah, I like Mark Andrews at 11-4. I've gone for David Njoku at 7-4 for the Browns. I just think he's going to get loads of targets, and hopefully one of them will be in the end zone. So that kind of makes sense at 7-4. And then last one, actually the shortest price, but I just think we don't know. We're not 100% sure he's going to play. I think he probably will because he has been in training. Tyrone Tracy for the Giants at 13-8.
Today I was reading about it. They reckon he's cleared concussion protocol.
Right. Okay.
So the fact that he's cleared it should mean he's fine to play, because it was concussion, not any other injury that's sustained. So if he's cleared it, I think he would be good to go.
Yeah, and he had 20 carries in the last game last week. I think he's clearly taken over now, and so I like him for this game. 26.07 to 1.
Let's see if his odds have moved since today. So what did you get him at?
13 to 8.
Still 13 to 8, but that news literally was, I think I read it at 4 o'clock today, and it's currently only 7. So that they're very new on that news. And as a Giants fan, I'm in a lot of forums and news things, so I might have got it before some other people. But yeah, I think he's cleared it. So yeah,
I think he looks good as well. He he really does. And also the other thing, what the Commanders, 25th when it comes to giving up rushing yards. So they're not the greatest against the run. So I think that Tracy has the potential here to gain.
A lot of people are saying that the Giants and Schoen had the best draft in terms of how the players have turned out this season. And a lot of people are now saying, they let Saquon go, but they are paying Tracy next to nothing. And if he turns out to be as good as what he was so far, it could be a fantastic pick, and another thing that might keep him his job going forward, how good he has been at drafting over the last couple of years.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see what happens with Tracy, because it has only really been one game of like real sort of like volume.
A couple of games of glimpses of greatness.
Yeah,
one good game.
One really, really good game of sort of like against a good running D as well in the Steelers. You got to remember that. So it's like, so it'll be interesting to see what happens here, because he's going up against a defense that's maybe not quite as good against the run. So it would be interesting to see what he does. I think he'll have a good game, and I think the Giants have they've got a couple of pieces that look pretty good on that offense. They just need to sort themselves out in a couple of other areas, and I think they'll be okay.
Yeah, I keep seeing Giants to make a trade offer for Bryce Young for a 4th. I'm like, okay, but that's for another show. My evening bet, my late bet, put it all in. Was well happy with the odds. Maybe not so good with some of the news we've had, but we'll see. I've had AJ Brown at 6 to 5. He looks like he's getting in the end zone every week now. He's back to full fitness. He's going up against the Jags, who have struggled. So I think there's plenty of points there to be had, and AJ Brown might be amongst them. I had Puka Nacua 8 to 5. We saw how many targets he got last week, and I think that's just going to continue if he's out there. So the sheer volume of targets means there's every chance he either catches one and runs it in himself, or there is a play to him in the end zone. I know they tend to go to Kupp's way a bit more, but I think he's got a great chance. And then the last one was Trey McBride against the Bears at 11 to 5. All that came in at 17.3 to 1. Shame about the news of Puka. Hopefully he's out there. Otherwise, it's just void and I just get a double on it. But, I had a double come in last week because of this.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the one that is probably, the most worrying of the three is going to be Trey McBride. He just doesn't seem to be being used in the red zone, and I don't know if that's just because they're not. I assume it's because they're not really getting there a lot of the time. That's the real issue. He hasn't had a touchdown all season, but he's he's a great PPR guy, but he just doesn't seem to be getting the touchdowns, which is a shame. But yeah, I mean, going up against the Bears defense, pretty decent defense as well. So yeah, that's a tough one, but that's why he's 11 to 5.
Mm-hmm.
So the other two I like. Puka, it's difficult, isn't it? It's going to be about whether he's fit or not. I mean, if he's out there, great. If he's out there, he'll probably score.
Yeah.
And if he's not, then probably won't, because he's not. So
the bet still runs.
Yeah, as a double. So it's not too bad. So for me, I have also gone AJ Brown at 6 to 5. I, like you said, going up against the Jags defense, struggle corners really struggle. AJ Brown, I think, is probably going to exploit that quite heavily in this game. So like him at 6-5. I've gone for Sam Laporta at 21-10 against the Packers. I think that without Jameson Williams, and it's weird to say this because Laporta isn't exactly a big play over the top guy, but without without Jameson Williams there, I think Sam Laporta suddenly becomes a lot more involved, and the Packers have struggled against the tight end this season, and it has been a bit tough for them. So at 21-10, I quite like the look of Laporta there, and yeah, you're going to tell me Raymond, aren't you?
I just wanted to see the odds on him.
Yeah. So yeah, Sam Laporta for me at 21-10. And then finally for the Rams, Cooper Kupp at 6-5. So I just think that, as you said, Puka gets a lot of the ball, but Cooper Kupp seems to be the end zone target to me, and that's a bit of an issue for Puka, I think, for the next sort of, well, certainly for the rest of this season. But yeah, it's not great. It's 14-1, so it's not amazing odds compared to the others, but I think it's considering what the 4 games were, I found it quite difficult
to get high odds. I did. That's why I had to bring Trey McBride into mine. I think, we both got short odds on a couple of wide receivers and then had to take a punt on some. Did you not fancy going Cole Kmet, Adam?
I declined from going. There was a part of me that was like, shall I do it just to be funny and just go back on there and see what happens? Because he's going to score, don't you? Yeah, you just know it's going to happen. But I decided against it. I thought I would go for Sam Laporta instead. I actually think there's been a lot of talk over this season. How poor the tight ends have been.
Yeah.
Till last week, but I do actually think you're going to start seeing some quite big performances from some tight ends over the rest of this season now, because maybe not so much Laporta, because if Jameson Williams comes back and all that, but Mark Andrews is looking better. David Njoku is going to get a lot of targets there. Brock Bowers is doing well. Tucker Kraft, well. George Kittle's been great. There's a lot of tight ends that, to me, I think they're starting to get a bit better now as we go to the second half. I had Kyle Pitts down as a potential for this week. Pitts has done really well, and I think he looks good. And Cade Otton, I think is going to be a good tight. I mean, we just haven't spoken about him because they're playing Monday night, but. Yeah, there's a lot of guys, a lot of tight ends that I think are going to do pretty well for the rest of this season.
Well, that's all we've got time for. Best of luck to any of your teams if you're playing. Fingers crossed we've got a winner from one of Adam's bets this week. That's what we want. Maybe just have a single on Cole Kmet just in case. Or
just
put
for
him
the
in a
fun
double.
of it. Just for a laugh.
Just because you know it's going to happen. And we'll post some graphics up with our FTAG5 on there, so you can have another look at that again if you want to get on that. But till then, guys, keep it with the franchise tag and see you again very soon.